What? Oh my god. And begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are representing 2 BBA from Christ University and we are going to review the election.
The Election by Sitakant Mahapatra. Now, this is a poem which surrounds about rural elections. Now, first, let's read the poem. Let's begin with the first paragraph, read by Mr. Anil.
A jeep crawls to your village, seeking strange melodies from the roaring sun, the common will from the crisscross geometry of private agonies.
Ladies and gentlemen, first we'll concentrate about elements, which is our first criteria of judgment.
Here, what do you visualize, Chirag, in this first paragraph?
See, the elements which I see here are purely the jeep crawling into village.
A procession, a
campaign.
campaign.
A campaign. People are going into the village with an idea of fetching votes. They are going into a carnival arena where everyone's campaigning. I want to win the election. I want to win the election. It's a demand for power.
That's where they seek strange melodies.
So, talking about the elements in the poem, the poet has mainly focused on the feelings of people. He is representing himself as a common man in a rural village, and he has represented the feelings of people, how they react to elections, and how the politicians bribe them, and that doesn't matter to them at the end of the day. That's what the poet focuses in the first 2 paras.
The poet here has emphasized on the word the common will. The common will here means the necessities of the villagers. That is food, water, and shelter.
Now, to continue, let's read the second paragraph. Our dark longings don't out you, nor our trappings of posters, symbols, speeches, handbills, for your grief outlives empires. So the last line which says, for your griefs outlives empires. Empires are political terms. Griefs are problems of the villages. So the problems of the villages will sustain on and forward. Even after one government comes and goes, the other government comes and goes.
There's no end to the grief while there is to that empire.
Yes, exactly. An element which I focus here is symbols, posters, handbills, speeches. Exactly. These are the certain things which every election is reminiscent of. When you think about election, you see campaigns.
Posters,
exactly. And that is what needs to be seen. But what we are seeing here is grief, sorrow, anguish, which is not entirely definitive of the word of election itself.
Even though it's a festival till morning to evening, at the end of the day, it's just disappointment.
Yeah. Here in the first line, the R refers to rallymen, and dark longings here refer to the time period in which rallies do not take place.
Exactly. Now we'll move on to the third paragraph. Shashank will read it.
The cold grandchildren awaken in your heart as you discern muted allegories on our ashen faces. So this talks a lot about how people are disappointed. Even though the politicians they come across people, they try to bribe them with food, they try to bribe them with many other things. It's all about it's all about disappointment at the end of the day. People are really happy with what they are given. They're looking out for a very good governance. They're looking out for food. They're looking out for water. It's not how much the politicians would bribe them and what they'd get.
How much ever the people try to project how sad they are, politicians don't care about it. That's all. How much ever you do so much on our ashen faces, it doesn't make a difference. That's what poet is trying to convey.
Yeah. And one more thing is awaken in your heart. What is filled in your heart? Aspirations of a good city, a good town. And what awakens? Nothing. The irony of the fact
anything we want is for our children. It's for our next generation.
Exactly.
It's for us to pass on to them. That's what. We want that for our next generation. But these guys, they don't care about that.
Exactly. And we see a situation where rural election here, the bifurcation between how urban election and rural election is, it's completely different.
Exactly.
It's filled with sorrow and their wishes not being fulfilled. Of course, city is more developed. But even it's more
City is also developed for their own selfish needs, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah. Fourth paragraph, can Chinmay read it out?
Fourth para. Here the great persuaders are little things, and not so hidden. Cheap plastic, cheaper nylon, darker glasses to blot out the sun.
Here what the poet tries to convey, the elements used in the poem here, the poet tries to convey are the small happinesses, small pieces of happiness villages receive are these cheap plastic, cheap nylons. They try to celebrate this moment.
Yeah, correct.
They try the campaign. They're having fun. That's what the cheap glasses. They all don't matter to the village people. All that is they're having fun. All that is.
See, the most important thing I find, very personally, I find here is small attractions.
Yeah, small attractions.
Small attractions are what appeals the general public in villages. Now they're happy for such small attractions, but in the long run, they know that they are the losers.
At
And
the
they
moment,
don't
they don't
realize
think
that.
about the long run.
Exactly.
All they want is
Yeah,
what they
small
get now.
things, yeah.
Exactly.
They don't think about the long run.
So, with this regard, I appreciate the poet, Mr.
This is how the poet is trying to show how simple the people in village are.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So we move on to the fifth paragraph, which says, "With one foot in hunger and the other in the soul, you make your decision, the anguish of choice."
Exactly, yeah.
So what
This
do
is
you
a
have?
So
wonderful
this is what we are
conclusion of the
talking
poem.
about, about the fourth paragraph. They're attracted by the, they're attracted
Small
by
things in
the
life.
small needs which the politicians give at that moment, and that they
Whatever
want,
appealed back then,
Yeah.
it shows up right now. Like we didn't make a wise choice back then. Now we're suffering from it.
But of late, whoever has been in the position or has governed certain villages, the people are still hungry. The people are still in
There's always
starvation.
been a condition.
Yeah.
It is wonderfully illustrated where poet says, "The one foot in hunger, the other foot in the soul. The soul full of aspirations, the other foot hunger, sadness,
Yeah.
sorrow."
Sadness, yeah, exactly.
The villagers have too many choices. That they have two choices: to do what is needed or to do what is right. So they have to choose between these.
Exactly, correct. So that ends our elements discussion. We'll now take a break, and during the break, we will hear something about what the poet is. We'll hear more about the poet, and hopefully, we'll come back and then we'll discuss more about the social relevance that this poem gives us.
As we are done with the elements, let's talk about the poet of the poem, which is Sitakant Mahapatra. Sitakant Mahapatra is a notable Indian poet and a literary critic in Oriya as well as English. He has also been in IAS since 1961 until retiring in 1995, and has since been ex officio posts such as chairman of National Book Trust, New Delhi.
So he has published about 15 poetry collections, 5 essay collections, a travelogue, and about 30 contemporary works, apart from numerous translations. His poetry collection have been published in several Indian languages, and his notable works are Sadbar Akash of 1971, which means the sky of words, Samudra in 1977, which means the ocean, and Anek Sharat in 1981. So he was also awarded Sahitya Academy Award by the Odisha government in 1974 for his poetry collection Sadkar Akash, and he was also awarded Gnanapita Award in 1993 for his outstanding contribution to the literature world.
In its citation, the Bharatiya Gyanpith noted, deeply steeped in the Western literature, his pen has a rare rapturous fragrance of native soil. He was also awarded Padma Bhushan in 2002 and Padma Vibhushan in 2011 for literature, apart from winning the Soviet Land Nehru Award, Kabir Samman, and several other prestigious awards.
Thank you.
Hello guys. Now the next criteria of our review is social relevance. Now why is that we study this poem when we are management students? What does it have to do with the society? The election is a societal process, let's be honest. An election determines our government, an election determines our basic right. It tells us as to how and what defines us as a nation. We choose our leaders, they represent us, they give us services, they give us recognition, and more so, an election talks about what we as a society are. It is very imperative that we discuss about the immediate effects of what an election can have to rural, urban, or any other society that concerns. My point here is that it's entirely relevant to the society that we live in to understand what village people face during elections. Their ideas, their wants, their needs are not being met. They have been promised a lot of things. An election is more so like a festival to them, but let's be honest, none of their wishes have been coming true. The poet beautifully illustrates the points of, slogans, speeches, their emotions being toiled with, played around with. It is a beautiful poem that Additional English has given to us by Crash University, and I think very clearly that we cannot change the society. Obviously, me or my friends can't do that alone, but we all together, including you, the watcher, I mean the viewer, and along with Christ University, which is a huge symbol in Bangalore, all over India, that is, can change the whole scenario of the elections. We can, as of now, decide what elections in the future can look like. We can turn the twist. We can turn the axis on its own by just determining what election should be. The social relevance, in a nutshell, is that elections are meant to be a certain way. Obviously, it is not. With respect to India, and more so with respect to rural elections, 70% of our population is filled with rural people, and it's time that we act. And the social relevance that I speak about here is understanding and changing the outlook of elections that we see as of now.
All right, the social relevance of the poem. How does it appeal to the normal general public? How does it appeal to a person like me? As far as I go, I mean, I'm not really into election. I don't know anything about election. Not much. I just know the general thing. People vote their leaders and all that shit. But then again, I don't know what election means to people. How people feel when there is election. But it is only through poems like this or essays someone write. It is only through those literary devices that I get to know. I get to understand how public feels, how people feel about elections. In the poem, poet beautifully crafted the feelings. He portrayed them in an amazing way. He told how the rural public reacts to a procession of campaign or something like that. And we can see that at the end of the day, they were all happy. The small things really matter. Those were the things that appealed to them. And those innocent souls didn't know what they were dragging themselves into. So this will throw light on their conditions, and hopefully people like us can react and then understand and be empathetic, more empathetic towards them. Thanks a lot.
So, guys, the next criteria we are going to touch upon is our opinions and judgments of the poem, which is again one of the judgment criterias in this internal assessment. One by one, we'll tell about our opinions, our judgments, and our critical analysis of the poem. Chinmay, let's start with what your opinion is about the poem.
I think that the poet here feels that mortality and ethical aspect of this moment, the election, fueled by the poverty and hunger, is discussed in this poem. The politicians play that hunger and poverty card very well. They promise them temporary benefits and get votes. They buy votes literally.
That's been the scene around India, right?
Exactly.
So, what I learn here from here is there's a lot of difference between, the nature of election campaign in rural and urban. There's a lot of difference. As days are coming by, in cities and urban places, we see election as, a commercial, I call it a commercial function.
Exactly.
It's a commercial function where, everything revolves around money. And when it comes to rural sector, the politicians usually try to, either they bribe people or they, convince people upon religious beliefs and religious sentiments. So, all I can say is election is like it's like a cycle. It starts from hunger and poverty, where the politicians promise them all the basic needs. It goes on, they get vote. It goes on. After their term is over, again it comes back to poverty, and again one or the other party would come and promise the same. So this is the general opinion about election in India, and as days are coming,
That's what politicians have been doing. I mean, they've been persuading all the three classes, upper, middle, and lower, with different methods. They have all these amenities.
In certain cases, they try to divide the community into caste or into religion.
That's how they try.
And especially this poem was translated from Oriya.
Oriya,
and we know Odisha as a state is, let's be honest, without any judgment, it is a little bit underdeveloped. And when a poet writes in Oriya about such a situation and it becomes translated into English and becomes such a huge hit, we know that there's a social relevance, and we know that each and every one of our opinions matter.
Yeah.
And you can say that
this was a problem that had to be addressed.
Yes, exactly.
And then this is how we reach to the mainstream media.
Exactly.
This is how we discuss.
So one positive thing about politicians is they adopt tactics and adopt strategies to approach people for votes.
Yes.
If that could be in a positive case on a larger scale, it would have positive impacts on the country, just like what the Modi Sarkar is doing right now.
Exactly.
The GDP has currently increased 7.2%, more than China, which is a very good sign. And over the last 6 years or years of independence, India has been exploited brutally.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
India has been exploited brutally
It's our time to
there
shine.
was
Yeah.
one time where one Indian rupee was equal to almost 15 US dollars. So you can very well imagine
And from
how
there we
the
went
rent
down
has-
to
yeah,
66 bucks. Right?
66.
Yeah, exactly.
So
My opinion on this is it's very emotional that the villagers go through. The
the
poet
poem is
is
very
playing
emotional.
with
Yeah.
the poet is playing with emotions in each and every paragraph.
Rather playing, he's portraying them.
Yeah, he's portraying them, and we can clearly understand what emotions, how emotions play a huge role. Even though if the poem might be one small poem in our curriculum out of the whole 3 years of BBA, we'll remember it for a certain reason that
Yeah.
elections happen
We should
time and again.
Time and again, yeah.
We are supposed to be seeing beyond all
Exactly.
that.
And a critical analysis that I would like to say is the poem is restricted to Odisha, but in actuality it's not. The scene is the same
All
in
over
entire
the-
all
it's
over
all
the
there,
country.
it's always
Exactly.
And we Indians are of wrong perception that the youth is not bothered about the country, which
Yeah.
is very false.
we are
Because
the sole representatives
of
of
the
that
country, and we the youth are more bothered about what's happening. Though we can't go and stand for elections, we certainly know what's going on off the screen.
100%.
So, but one
So, yeah,
positive
that
thing
is
is,
it.
as days are coming by, it's India is progressing because we can't develop India to be progressed overnight. It's second most
It's,
densely
yeah.
populated country in the world.
all
So-
in all, yeah, if we want to conclude in a very perfect way, I'd like to say that the poem is very well illustrated.
Yes.
It shows all the problems, it shows the positives also. It gives us something to take back,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So that is
exactly.
what we look for. And to
And,
conclude, we'll all
yeah,
say
there's a lot of differences between what the poet has mentioned in the poem and what we are seeing
Yeah.
in day-to-day life.
exactly.
So at the end, India is a developing country, and in some years, we are
We'll get
confident.
there.
We are
We'll get
confident
there
that
first.
India will be a developed country, and India is one of the best country to live in.
Exactly.
So-
So, ladies and gentlemen, don't let
Don't
your
let your-
decisions
Anguish.
Be an anguish.
Be an answer of choice.
don't let your decisions be the anguish
Anguish
of
of
choice. Do not come under the pressure of elections. Be a part of it. Let's make the country
And please
better.
not be bifurcated because people tell you to.
Exactly.
Vote
We are
wisely.
Indians and we need to be united by the tagline called Indians.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's very fair to. That's a very fair point to end this review on, and hopefully every one of you enjoyed this show, and hopefully we learn a lot of things in the road, and that is it. We'd like to finish on that note and have a good time. Thank you.
Jai Hind.
Don't let your decision be
Anguish of choice.